First of all, what do you think about the speed of the IMF governance and quota reform?
Could be significantly improved.
Very moderately said, I think that. But then, what are the obstacles facing you right now in order to push that reform forward?
The ratification by the US Congress of the reform of the governance. Once that happens, the whole governance, the whole quota increase, and the whole improvement of the representation of the members around the table will happen. This is what is holding it up.
Obama administration talked about the U.S. would lose its credibility if the Congress does not approve the IMF reform and governance plan. But then, how much hope do you really have, given the political fight going on right now in D.C.?
I very much hope that they can find a solution and that they can reach agreement between the executive and the legislative branch on this matter, because I believe that it is not in the interest of the international community, nor in the interest of multilateralism, to have a key member of the organization dragging the whole reform process. I said one thing, I said, once that is done, I will do belly dancing. So it tells you, how dedicated I am to make sure that this reform is implemented. But we have been waiting a long time. I am certainly very frustrated.
I'm looking forward to your dancing styles.
I will call you, I promise.
Please do. On the other hand, we do see some parallel developments. For example, AIIB, Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank. Some suggest this can be a growing momentum to push for further reform with the existing international financial system that we have, probably even IMF quota and governance reform. What do you think?
I think that the manier, sometimes the better. And there is plenty of work to be done. Infrastructure needs is not in short supply. So to have a strong actor like the AIIB, particularly of a multilateral nature as is beginning to take shape, is good news. And there is nothing like a bit of competition, although the IMF and the AIIB would never compete because we are not in the business of infrastructure financing. So we will cooperate, and I very strongly welcome the activity of this AIIB as currently considered.
At this moment, it's not just Asia, but also many of the European countries, Germany, France, Italy, and many others. What do you think should be the change that's happening to the Bretton Woods system that we are using today after World War II?
The Bretton Woods system was intended, as far as the IMF is concerned, to be an institution with global membership. We have 188 members. It was based on reciprocated support when lending was needed. And it is intended to help with the stability of the global economy and with growth in the global economy. To have had 70 years of experience doing that, which is difficult, which requires understanding the landscape, understanding the history of the membership, understanding the constraints, and having the ability to be honest truth teller to the governments. It doesn't happen just overnight. So I think that we can cooperate very strongly. We need to evolve. Let's be perfectly straight on that point. We need to evolve, and it cannot stay an institution of the 20th century. It needs to become the 21st century multilateral institution with the mission to guarantee stability and to facilitate growth.
While meeting Christine Lagarde on Monday, Chinese Premier Li Keqiang asked the IMF to include the Chinese renminbi in the special drawing rights basket. SDRs are international foreign exchange reserve assets. At present, SDRs consist of US dollars, euros, pound sterling and the Japanese yen. Criteria for inclusion in SDRs include both how widely a currency is used and that it is freely usable. Chinese Central Bank Governor Zhou Xiaochuan pledged to take more action to open up China's financial market.
In the future, not only companies but also residents at home and abroad will be able to invest in more convenient ways. We will basically achieve capital account convertibility or make currency use freer.
The Chinese currency will be reviewed by the IMF this year. The Chinese are promising to further free up the renminbi through financial system reforms.
It's a massive set of reforms that is coming up, which will facilitate the financing of SMEs, which will facilitate the investment by foreign investors and the investment of Chinese institutions and households outside of China, which will strengthen the banking system, which will really make China an economy that can finance innovation, that can thrive in multiple ways. But those are big reforms, and they need to be conducted with in mind order and stability. You don't want a financial market which is in complete disruption, and you don't want disorder. So as much as I welcome that, and we will do as much as we can to support, help, provide technical assistance when it is needed, as much I hope that this will take place with the right speed in order not to disrupt. But I am very much looking forward to the special drawing right baskets to include the renminbi under this stability objective that we need to have for the Chinese economy and for the global economy. But we can work together, and I don't want to be bound by a date, because a reform process is not always delivered on due date. And it's more important that
it's fluid.
And that we can reach the objectives together efficiently than to rush to a date and create disorder and chaos.
But we do know the date for the review of the SDR special drawing rights, which is regular.
Which comes before the end of 2015. But you know,
that is according to the 12th five-year plan, which is, of course, the end of the year.
Yeah. It's nice to have, a time frame. It's very important to have objectives. And I think that we can be intelligent and we can be flexible to extend dates if and when needed in order to ascertain that the reform is solidly anchored and the ground is fertile for that SDR reform to be really exceptional and unquestionable.
I think that message is very clearly said. On the other hand, we also see some interesting development from the Chinese side. And you talk about recently at a conference in Beijing, CDRF, you talk about the clearance of the governance style and also clearance of the path for reform to take off here in this country. How much do you think still need to be cleared up?
You know, the clearing of the air is certainly underway, and we can see the blue sky of Beijing today, which is a good sign. More needs to be done. Everybody knows that to have the political determination to do so is critically important. Cleaning up the governance is a major endeavor that the Chinese authorities have embarked upon, which is necessarily going to create some disruption, which is a hard process to go through, but extremely important from the economic stability and the growth perspective. We know that for a fact and from best practices. When there is good governance on the ground, the economy prospers. The third one, which is clearing the path, I really meant the exercise by China of its leadership, particularly on the international scene. And we have just discussed that. And it is welcome. It is welcome.
Christine Lagarde. In 2011, the French lawyer and politician became the first woman to lead the International Monetary Fund, which provides loans and financial advice to its 188 member countries. Before being the managing director of the IMF, Lagarde was a labour and antitrust attorney in the US and did a 6-year stint in the French government. During her 3 years at the IMF, she faced an unstable global economy in the wake of the financial crisis and demanded policymakers institute reforms. Lagarde was ranked by Forbes magazine as the 5th most powerful woman in the world last year. She describes herself as a supporter of the empowerment of women and equal opportunities. She says women contribute greatly to the world economy and that they matter enormously when it comes to a question of focusing on value, focusing on principles, and keeping a promise. Women are crucial, she says, for driving a stronger global economic recovery. But some are wondering why a public official is constantly speaking out about female issues.
So why is it still so important, even today?
Because if it is understood, it is not yet demonstrated, and certainly not everywhere. You know, back 20 years ago, this very large women's summit that took place in Beijing, I think the saying was 1995. The saying was, women's rights are human rights. And that, I think, is embedded in people's mind. But I think that women's right makes economic sense is not yet finding its way into the economic landscape. You know, I sit on many meetings, I attend lots of discussions. There are still too few women around the table. And I will continue to push that because it makes economic sense. Not only is it a human right, not only is it a moral cause, because we hold half the sky, but we have to hold half the economy as well. And we can do a good job.
I heard you were talking about it at Davos meeting the other year and saying you have already a whole list of women that are capable sitting on the boards.
Yes.
If someone is complaining that they don't have sufficient women to be there,
I have my list, yes.
Are you still doing that?
I don't have to do it now because I don't, you know, I don't operate with companies anymore. I operate with any of our 188 countries. But I always make the point with the leaders of those countries. And I say, you know, how many women do you have in your delegation? Right. You have capable women. And some leaders understand that message and they go back and they try to implement rules and to educate so that women are accepted for what they are worth: talent, potential, contribution.
In the country of Germany, 30% of women, at least on the non-executive board, that is being written into the law. Of course, there are a lot of social debates about that in that country, but what do you think, will quota system really get us there? Besides this cultural and advocacy, how much really are we seeing around the world?
We are seeing some progress, but we're certainly seeing progress in those countries that have implemented quota or targets rules. This is certainly the case in the Nordic countries, for instance. And to all those who say, oh, but women should stand on their own merits, they don't need quotas, that's a feeble excuse not to make space for talented women. So at least for a period of time, this is needed, and it will give a better level playing field than what we have at the moment.
Practical tips from you for women?
I think we should make sure that women's cause is a man's cause as well. I think it should not be exclusive to women. It's common to all of us. The second thing I would say, education, education, education. Focus as much as you can on that wherever you are. For young girls, for daughters, for sisters, for colleagues. I think, you know, educating women in whichever country, at whichever level, is the best investment that can be made.
I know you've been making the same points over and over again, but I see a lot of lies still when you said that. Thank you so much, Madam Lagarde, for being with us.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.